4 hours before. Definitely no one wants to be filmed. When I was doing my MA, there were so many students who wanted to be a fashion designer since the age of 15, so they already had a path mapped out in how they wanted to proceed after the course. So they would apply for New Gen or Fashion East and take that funding and start their own brand, or go off to Paris and work for a big fashion house, or in Milan or in New York. And so I think it was only towards the end of the course that I started thinking, oh, why not me? Maybe I want to do that. But I didn't have the time up till that point to really consider starting my own label. I didn't have that ambition going into it. And I think the more you kind of channel your creativity and find your talent and your skill set, and because it was quite individual what I was doing, and it received a lot of press attention after the MA, that kind of pushed me to try and apply. So I applied for New Gen sponsorship. I remember getting a sponsorship for a stand as part of the exhibition, so not a show. Immediately, a friend of mine helped me find a studio in Hackney Wick, which was probably as big as this table. It had bars, so we called it fashion jail. And I had an intern who didn't speak much English, who I found from the St. Martins BA, helping me out. And with the funding we got, we did a collection of 8 shift dresses with oversized trompe-l'oeil digital prints of jewellery. I took that to the stand, and I remember thinking there will be no orders, you know, I'll be lucky if I get one store, and Browns had shown interest, so I thought that would be it. I'll just be selling to Browns, and that already is a huge honor. And I took kind of a pack with a press release for the collection. I didn't even have prices, didn't have an order form. It shouldn't be done that way, clearly. So I wasn't really prepared for sales. But I remember Penelope, the store, came through my stand, and Roberta Valentini loved it and started calling all her Italian friends saying, you have to see this, it's a new label, and I'm buying it. And I remember she whispering to my ear when I said this would be my first ever order. She said, you know what, I was the first to buy Monsieur Alaya. I was like, okay then, we're in great company. And then Colette bought the collection, Browns bought the collection, Joyce bought the collection, and I think Barney's did, or if it wasn't that season, it was the following season. So already it became very real. When I got the first orders, I realized that I needed a team. I hired a pattern cutter, and I didn't really have money to fund the production, so I found this amazing Polish woman who set up a studio here in London, a small sampling unit, and she kind of produced 10 dresses, got paid with a deposit, shipped out. Produced another 10 dresses, got paid from the deposit, got shipped out. So it happened gradually. And then I was lucky enough to be given a subsidized studio from the Center for Fashion Enterprise for 2 years. And that's when I feel the business started having a base. I started having a place to actually sample. And I was there for 2 years. And I think that kind of got me on my feet. Because I was lucky enough to have the right stores from the beginning. So I think from then it started scaling, and the collection started scaling. The next season I was given a show, and that was the perfume bottle collection. It was autumn winter 2009, and that's how it started. As soon as you figure out the DNA of your brand, you're responsible to that and to the codes you're building. And I think one of the biggest challenges has been that, you know, as soon as you determine who you are, realizing that you can't be everything for everyone, for all times. There's a time, I think, for every designer to try and figure out their bandwidth, but there's another time that you need to make sure that within the bandwidth that you're trying to discover, you're also always staying true to who you are. The balance between making sure that every collection brings in newness, but also pulls back to what your core is. So that was a challenge. And I think growing a team is always a challenge. I think it's probably one of the biggest challenges we face, because you can only be as good every season as your team is. But I think we're just sending things as they become ready.
Finished, I guess.
And so Dagger is being cut by Sophie.
Yes, Sophie's cutting. And we're waiting for one more dress version. Gown.
We don't advertise, and I think being able to dress a woman who has a huge amount of influence in terms of how stylish she is and how people look up to her and want to dress like her, if we can protect that and it be women who I admire and who I would love to dress, it becomes a huge tool for brand awareness. And I think definitely at the time that I was setting up my brand, even more so. I remember the first time Keira Knightley wore a dress of mine, and it was back in 2010 to the Venice Film Festival, and I didn't even know that was going to occur, and just before the show I saw pictures of her everywhere, and I think until that point she was mainly dressing in Chanel, so it was a big departure for her to wear it, and I realized what influence that had in terms of people recognizing the brand and knowing who Mary Katrantzou the brand is. If there's an affinity to the brand, it's not necessarily just celebrities, it's women that inspire you. They could be architects, they could be neurologists. It's very interesting to me to see who wears it, how they wear it, and they give, I guess, different life to the collection, because it's different seeing it on a person who is connected to the collection rather than somebody who's just showcasing it in a show. I think there's a different energy to that, and I think it's important. When I first started, printing was so taboo, and it was such a niche, doing pieces that were so daring and bold in color, in print, and in fabrication in many cases. I've met a lot of these women who have pieces from the inception of the brand, from those early seasons, and I always say, if I ever do an exhibition, it's so great that your archive is really their wardrobe. I think it's an important thing in these times to be able to create collections that you feel are uplifting and allow you as a designer to dream, and hopefully the women who are wearing them to feel uplifted and empowered and hopefully really confident wearing them.